Deep within the heart of the burning hollow, where rivers of molten lava flow like blood through the veins of the earth, lay the entrance to a long-forgotten temple. Hidden behind a waterfall of molten rock, this ancient sanctuary had remained untouched for centuries, its secrets buried beneath layers of ash and time. Doran, a seasoned explorer with a heart of steel and a mind sharpened by countless adventures, had finally deciphered the ancient map that led to this elusive place. With him were Kara, a fierce warrior with a blade as sharp as her wit, and Nera, a scholar whose knowledge of ancient magics was rivaled only by her curiosity. Together, they stood at the edge of the burning cascade, their gazes fixed on the glowing entrance that promised both unimaginable riches and untold dangers. The air around them crackled with energy, the heat from the lava radiating in waves that made the very ground beneath their feet tremble. As they approached the waterfall, the sheer intensity of the heat seemed to push them back, but Doran pressed on, his determination unwavering. He had come too far to turn back now. The temple's legend spoke of a power that could reshape the world, a power that had been hidden away for fear of what it could unleash. But Doran was not one to be swayed by fear. He saw only the potential for discovery and the thrill of the unknown. Kara, ever the warrior, scanned the area for any signs of danger. Her instincts told her that this place was more than just a simple temple. It was a fortress, a tomb, and a prison all in one. The silence that enveloped the cavern was unnerving, broken only by the distant rumble of the volcano and the occasional hiss of steam escaping from the cracks in the earth. "We should be careful," she warned, her voice steady but low. "This place doesn't want us here." Nera, meanwhile, was lost in thought, her eyes tracing the ancient symbols carved into the rocks around them. The language was old, older than anything she had seen before, and it spoke of a power that was both revered and feared by those who once worshipped here. As they prepared to enter the temple, Doran felt a strange pull, as if the very walls were calling to him, urging him to step inside. The sensation was both exhilarating and unsettling, but he dismissed it as nothing more than the thrill of the adventure. With a deep breath, he stepped through the waterfall, the searing heat washing over him as he crossed into the darkness beyond. Kara and Nera followed closely behind, their eyes adjusting to the dim light as they entered the vast chamber that lay within. The temple was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls glowed with a faint, eerie light, and the air was thick with the scent of sulphur and ancient magic. In the center of the chamber stood a massive altar, carved from the very rock of the volcano, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed with a life of their own. Surrounding the altar were statues of long-forgotten gods, their expressions a mix of sorrow and rage, as if they mourned the loss of something precious. As the trio approached, the air grew colder and a sense of foreboding settled over them. This was no mere temple. It was a place of power, a place where the boundary between life and death was as thin as the veil of smoke that hung in the air. As they ventured deeper into the temple, the air grew colder, the oppressive heat of the volcano gradually giving way to an eerie chill that sent shivers down their spines. The walls of the temple seemed to close in around them, the glowing symbols growing brighter with each step, casting long, wavering shadows that danced on the rough-hewn stone. Doran led the way, his instincts honed by years of exploration, guiding him through the twisting passages. But even he could not shake the feeling that they were being watched, that something ancient and powerful was aware of their presence. Kara's hand never left the hilt of her sword, her eyes constantly scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. Her warrior's intuition screamed that they were walking into a trap, but with each twist and turn, they only seemed to go deeper into the heart of the temple. The walls pulsed with a strange energy, and the sound of their footsteps echoed unnaturally, as if the temple itself was alive, resonating with their every movement. Nera, meanwhile, was entranced by the symbols, her fingers tracing the ancient carvings as she murmured incantations under her breath, trying to decipher their meaning. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently, and a deep, resonant rumble echoed through the cavern. The symbols flared brightly, and the statues of the forgotten gods seemed to come to life, their stone eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The temple was awakening, responding to their presence in a way that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Doran felt a surge of adrenaline as he realized that they had triggered something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. "We need to move quickly," he urged, his voice tense. "This place is waking up, and I don't think it wants us here." They hurried through the twisting corridors, their path illuminated by the pulsating glow of the symbols. The deeper they went, the more the temple seemed to resist them. The walls closed in, and the ground shifted beneath their feet, threatening to swallow them whole. Kara led the charge, her blade slicing through the thick air as she cleared the way. But no matter how fast they moved, the temple seemed to anticipate their every step, its ancient mechanisms grinding to life, sealing off passages and creating new obstacles in their path. Finally, they reached a massive chamber, the largest they had encountered so far. In the center of the room stood a colossal statue of a forgotten god, its eyes blazing with an intense fiery light. Surrounding the statue were 4 pillars, each etched with symbols that radiated power and danger. At the base of the statue, a large stone door loomed, sealed with an intricate locking mechanism that seemed to hum with energy. This was the heart of the temple, the place where the true secrets were kept. But as they approached the door, the ground trembled once more, and the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding. They were not alone. As the ground beneath them continued to tremble, Doran approached the massive stone door, examining the intricate locking mechanism. The symbols etched into the stone pulsed with a rhythm that matched the beating of his heart, as if the temple itself was alive and aware of his presence. Kara stood by his side, her sword drawn, ready to face whatever dangers awaited them on the other side. Nera, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe, began to recite the incantations she had learned from the ancient texts, hoping to unlock the secrets of the door. With a sudden, resounding click, the mechanism responded to Nera's incantation, and the stone door slowly began to slide open. The sound of grinding stone filled the chamber as the door revealed a passage beyond, bathed in an eerie crimson light. The heat that poured out of the passage was intense, almost unbearable, and the air was thick with the scent of sulfur and molten rock. Doran took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead, and stepped into the passage, with Kara and Nera following closely behind. The passage led them to a massive chamber filled with a lake of molten lava, its surface bubbling and churning like a cauldron of liquid fire. In the center of the chamber, suspended above the lake by a series of crumbling stone bridges, was a pedestal, upon which rested a glowing artifact, the heart of the temple's power. The artifact pulsed with an intense otherworldly energy, casting long shadows across the chamber and illuminating the faces of the trio with an ominous glow. But as they approached the pedestal, the temperature soared, and the lava began to rise, as if the temple itself was trying to protect its secrets. The stone bridges groaned under the weight of the rising lava, threatening to collapse at any moment. Doran knew that they had little time to reach the artifact before the entire chamber was consumed. He moved quickly, leaping from one crumbling bridge to the next, the heat searing his skin and the air around him shimmering with the intensity of the flames. Kara followed closely, her movements swift and precise, while Nera struggled to keep up, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she fought against the suffocating heat. Just as they reached the pedestal, the chamber shuddered violently, and one of the bridges collapsed into the molten lake below, sending a wave of lava surging towards them. Doran grabbed the artifact, feeling its immense power coursing through his veins, but as he did, a searing pain shot through his body. He realized too late that the artifact was not just a source of power, it was a curse, binding him to the temple as its next guardian. The ancient magic sealed his fate, and as the lava rose to consume them, Doran knew that he was now trapped, bound to protect the temple's secrets for all eternity. The chamber fell into a tense silence as the lava continued to rise, filling the air with a thick, suffocating heat. Doran could feel the artifact's power pulsing through him, its energy almost too much to bear. His vision blurred, and his heart pounded in his chest as the realization of his fate began to sink in. He was now bound to the temple, destined to become its next guardian, just as countless others had before him. The weight of this knowledge was crushing, and for the first time he felt truly helpless. Kara, ever the warrior, refused to give up. She grabbed Doran's arm, trying to pull him away from the pedestal, but it was as if an invisible force was holding him in place. "We have to go now," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. But Doran could barely hear her over the roar of the lava and the pounding of his own heart. He knew that there was no escape, not for him. The temple had chosen him, and there was no breaking the bond that had been forged. Nera, seeing the pain in Doran's eyes, frantically searched her mind for a way to break the curse. She recalled the ancient texts she had studied, the rituals and incantations meant to sever bonds of magic. But as she began to chant, the temple itself seemed to resist her efforts, the symbols on the walls flaring brightly, filling the chamber with a blinding light. The magic of the temple was too strong, too ancient, and Nera's words fell on deaf ears. The ground beneath them shook violently once more, and the molten lava surged higher, licking at the edges of the remaining bridges. Doran could feel the heat searing his skin, but the pain was distant, almost as if it belonged to someone else. His thoughts were no longer his own, consumed by the will of the temple. "Go," he managed to whisper, his voice strained. "Leave me. Save yourselves." But Kara and Nera hesitated, torn between their loyalty to their friend and the terror of what was to come. In a final act of desperation, Kara slashed at the pedestal with her sword, hoping to sever the connection between Doran and the artifact. But as her blade struck the stone, a shockwave of energy erupted from the pedestal, throwing her back and knocking Nera to the ground. The artifact's glow intensified, and the chamber was filled with a deafening roar as the temple sealed its claim on Doran. The last thing he saw before the light consumed him was the look of anguish on Kara's face, and the tears in Nera's eyes as they were forced to retreat, leaving him behind to fulfill his new eternal role as the guardian of the flame. The temple's roar slowly faded into a deep, echoing silence, leaving only the soft crackle of cooling lava and the distant hum of ancient magic. Kara and Nera stood at the edge of the chamber, their eyes fixed on the spot where Doran had been moments before. The artifact had vanished, along with the searing light, leaving behind only the stillness of the temple. The reality of what had happened began to sink in, and the weight of their loss pressed down on them like the stone walls of the temple itself. Kara clenched her fists, her heart torn between rage and sorrow. She had always been the one to fight, to protect, but here, in the heart of the temple, she had been powerless to save her friend. Nera, on the other hand, was overcome with grief, tears streaming down her face as she whispered prayers for Doran's soul. The temple had claimed him, just as it had claimed so many before, and there was nothing they could do to change it. The only thing left was to honor his sacrifice. As they turned to leave, a faint glow caught Nera's eye. She stopped and looked back at the pedestal, where a new figure now stood, a spectral form bathed in a soft golden light. It was Doran, but not as they had known him. He was transformed, his features serene and his body radiating with the power of the temple. He was no longer the man they had journeyed with. He was now the guardian, bound to protect the temple for all eternity. Nera took a step forward, but Doran raised a hand, signaling her to stop. "Go," he said, his voice echoing with an ethereal calm. "This is my fate. You must live." Kara nodded solemnly, understanding that there was no turning back. Doran had become part of the temple, his spirit intertwined with its ancient magic. They could not stay, for the temple would soon seal itself again, and any who remained would share his fate. With heavy hearts, They turned away and began the long journey back through the winding corridors, leaving the temple and its new guardian behind. As they emerged from the burning hollow, the world outside seemed almost unreal. The sky was clear, the air cool, and the volcano was silent, as if it too had accepted the temple's new guardian. Kara and Nera looked back one last time, their thoughts with Doran now lost to them forever. But they knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. He had saved them, and in doing so, had taken on a burden that would protect the world from the temple's power. With a final, silent farewell, they turned away and walked into the light of a new day, carrying the memory of their friend with them and the knowledge that he would guard the temple's secrets for all time.